الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وخاتم المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة الدائمة الباقية لأعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. Sisters and brothers in Iman, Salaam alaikum. One of the issues which occupies almost everyone's mind during the month of Ramadan, before it and towards the end of it, is the issue of moonsighting. There's a lot of anxiety, expectations, and so we thought maybe this would be the opportunity to, educate the community about the whole process where the decision is made for declaring the beginning of the month of Ramadan or the day of Eid. It hasn't always been that easy, but I think it's important for everyone to realize that these decisions are not just made, arbitrarily. There is a system. There are rules and regulations that we have to follow when we come to that decision-making process. What I have for you as a presentation is actually something I wrote in January 2008. The first time I made the presentation was last year in Chicago at a seminar where they had asked me to talk about the issue of moonsighting. So what you see today, this evening, is actually an updated version of my paper on this issue. Let me begin by talking about the background of the Islamic religious calendar. Our common calendar is based on the solar system, as it is tied to the seasons. So always July and August would be in summer, and winter and January would be in December, and January would be in winter. But when we look at the Islamic system, the calendar, it is based not on the solar system but on the lunar system. And that is where we see that the differences come in. And this is actually based on the choice which was made by us, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for us. If you look at this ayat from Surah Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَهِلَّةِ. Ahilla is plural of hilal, the crescent. That people ask you about the hilal, tell them that these are mawaqit. These are basically the basis of timings for the people and for Hajj. So in our regular life, we can go with the common calendar. There's no problem. Especially if you are a farmer, that is how you go with, because you look at the seasons. But when it comes to religious activities, that is where we have to go by the lunar calendar. And this is actually a rahmat by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is where you will see, for example, the month of Ramadan is not always in the same season. It takes about 30 to 33 years for the months to go through the cycle of the seasons. And this is a rahmat in a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He had fixed our religious calendar on the basis of the solar system, then some places of the world would always have Ramadan in summer, and some would always have Ramadan in winter. And those who would be in the summer area would be complaining that, oh Allah, what was our fault that we had to fast every year long. This way, in all regions of the world get this, flavor of short Ramadan as well as long Ramadan. It also facilitates the process of Hajj. Those who cannot, go, maybe the kind of work is such that in certain seasons they cannot take off. So they can wait till Zul Hijj comes in the season that they can go for Hajj. And so this element is basically a reflection of the rahmat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Islamic months basically are 29 or 30 days only. And this is where we see it is 9 to 10 days shorter than the common calendar. And that's why you have the difference. It doesn't happen at the same time. Now, coming specifically to the month of Ramadan, there is a connection between the month of Ramadan and the issue of moon sighting. When we look at the ayat from Surah Baqarah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the month of Ramadan, one of the statements is, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْهُ. Now, in most of the Sunni translations of the Quran, you will see it says, whoever witnesses the moon, the month. They take witnessing of the month as witnessing the moon, they should fast. In Shii tafsir of this ayat, shahida doesn't mean to witness, rather it means to be present. Means you have now the knowledge that you are in the month of Ramadan. And this is opposed to a situation where a person is not present in his own city, he is somewhere else traveling. Because the following ayat talks about those who are travelers. There is a very famous hadith accepted by Shias and Sunnis alike where the Prophet says, Sum lirru'ya waftir lirru'ya. Beginning your fast by the sighting of the moon and conclude your fast, the month of Ramadan, with the sighting of the moon. So sighting of the moon has become the basis of the month of Ramadan and beginning and end of it. However, we have to know that sighting of the crescent is not by itself an objective. It is just a means to ascertain that the hilal is there in our horizon. Our mujtahideen use the term where they say that ru'yat of the hilal, the sighting of the hilal, is not the mawdu'. It is not the objective by itself. Rather, it is tariq. It is a means of reaching to the knowledge that the moon is already there. And that statement is very important. It comes later on in our discussion. So when we talk about the issue of, the beginning of the month, based on the sighting of the moon, the methods given by our mujtahideen. Let me just list that. Number one, if you see the crescent yourself, there can be nothing more, basis of yaqeen than that. Number two, testimony of two just witnesses. If two individuals come and say, we saw the moon, that would be sufficient. Or completion of 30 days of the month of Ramadan, because the lunar months are not more than 30 days. So if we didn't see the moon and 30th day comes, the next day would be the day of Eid. Having yaqeen or itmi'inan that the crescent has been sighted. If you have that yaqeen and itmi'inan, that is also a sufficient basis for you to fast or to observe Eid. And finally, we have a statement from the mujtahidin where they say hukm of a mujtahid that tomorrow is the first of the month, Ramadan or Shawwal, is also binding. Now remember, there is a difference, and I would like you to pay attention on this statement. There is a difference between a mujtahid or a marja declaring next day to be the first of the month, as opposed to saying, I give the hukm that tomorrow is the first of the month. Declaration is not hukm. Declaration is just that they have been satisfied based on the witnesses who came to them, and they consider next day to be the first day of Ramadan or the first day of Eid. Hukum is a different thing. In Arabic, you wouldn't say, ثَبَتَ عِنْدَ السَّيِّد. The marja, the Syed, for whom it's proven that tomorrow is the first day. That is just his, decision on that issue. But hukum would be hakam al-Syed or hakam al-marja. He has given the hukum that tomorrow is the first day. If the hukum comes, then everybody has to follow. And very rare Maraji give hukum when it comes to the declaration of the first day of the month of Ramadan or Shawwal. In my lifetime, there was only one case when Ayatollah Gulpaigani said, I am giving the hukum that tomorrow is the day of Eid. Nobody else has done that. So remember the difference between announcement by a marja and hukum by a marja are two different things. Now, what is one of the important things that we have to realize is the issue of the difference between new moon and hilal. Hilal is the Arabic term. It's also used in Farsi and Urdu. And it means the crescent. Is the young crescent same as the new moon? And this is where we have to look. If you look at the diagram there on the screen, the earth is right there in the middle, and the moon rotates around the earth. It takes it 1 month to go around. On the right side, you will see it says new. This is new moon. On the opposite side is half of the month, so it's full moon. At the top, you have first quarter. At the bottom, you have third quarter. So the question now comes up that is hilal the new moon or not? And this is where we have to realize that no, that is not the reality. The new moon is born when it completes its circle around the earth, precisely in 29 days, 12 hours, 44 minutes, 2.78 seconds. And so you will say, what is all this fuss about Eid? We'll come to that. This is the birth of the new moon. You can get that data of when the new moon will be born from today till a century from here. They can provide, the astronomers can give you that details. But the question is hilal the new moon? It is not. Because if you look at the whole process here, the new moon, even from the scientific point of view, is known as no moon. And this is in quotation. New moon is no moon. Why no moon? Look at the graph there. From the perspective of the earth, you are standing there looking towards the new moon. What do you see from the earth? It is black. At the time of the birth, the new moon is totally invisible to us. So that's not the hilal. Hilal is not the new moon, it is something else. So the new moon sign that you see in the calendar and say, oh, but my calendar says from Loblaws or the pharmacist, it says new moon. So next day should be the first day. No. New moon from the scientific point of view is actually no moon. Means you will not be able to see that moon at all. So what is the hilal then? From that moon, from the time of the birth, for it to become hilal, to become the young crescent, it needs about 17 to 23 hours, depending on the speed of the moon. The moon also dances around the earth. Sometimes it's very happy, it goes fast. Sometimes not that happy, it goes slow. And that's why you have this range of 17 to 23 hours. And it's only then that it becomes visible to us. Only a very, a small limb of that new moon now becomes visible. So it's not the birth of the new moon which decides the Islamic lunar month. It is the young crescent, the hilal, the crescent which is visible by the naked eyes. Now, as far as the visibility is concerned, based on the observatory telescope, very powerful ones, if you just look through it only, not by naked visibility, you might be able to sight the hilal 15 and a half hours after the birth. But majority of our mujtahideen do not consider the telescopic sighting by itself to be sufficient. The only person is Ayatollah Khamenei who accepts the telescopic sighting. All others said no, it should be visible by naked eyes. Now, so that's one thing. And it's very important that there's a difference between new moon and the hilal, which is known as the young crescent. The second point is the range of the sighting and the impact of sighting in one region compared to other regions of the world. This is known as اتحاد الأفق or اختلاف الأفق. Ufuq means the horizon. اتحاد الأفق means those areas which have kind of same horizon as far as sighting is concerned. اختلاف الأفق means they are in different, horizons as far as the sighting of the crescent is concerned. Now, when you look at that, the cities that share the horizon, and what do we mean by this term, sharing the horizon? Which means that if the moon is sighted in area A, it could also be sighted in area B. So then you will say both the cities are in the same horizon. And this will be covered by one sighting. So for example, if we look at Toronto and Windsor, when we look at the calculations, we see that if the moon is sighted in Toronto, it can very easily be also sighted in Windsor. So they are all on the same ufuk. The cities that don't share the horizon because of the distance. Now, when it comes to the sharing of the horizon, this has been in our fiqh from day one. As long as the two cities share the horizon, they will follow the same sighting. What about the cities which are far away from one another when it comes to the ikhtilaf al-ufuq? Now, the past mujtahideen did not really have an opinion on this issue. Why? Because those good old days, this was not a problem. Just think about it 50 years ago. If the moon was sighted in Zanzibar, when will the people, for example, in Najaf or Qom or Makkah or Bombay or Karachi come to know about that sighting? Until somebody sends the letter to them, or a traveler comes to them. So for them it was irrelevant. People only looked at the moon in their own areas. If they see it, they follow it. If they don't see it, they don't have to worry about it. There was no telephone, no telegraph, at least for moon sighting of those days. So, these were not the relevant issues for the mujtahideen of the past. That what do we do on a global level? Because all the regions of the world will just go with their own sighting. And that's why I'm saying those were the good old days. We didn't have that pressure. Nowadays, even if it's possible to see it in Toronto, people still sit by the telephone. Baba, go out. Go out and look at the moon in your own city. But, people are now relying on all this information. With the speed in communication, this is what is happening. And so keep in mind that this is a new issue as far as the global impact of the sighting is concerned. Whether the sighting in one area has global implication or regional, there are basically three views. The majority view is that if the young crescent is sighted, it is sufficient for its own region and all the cities to its west. So the concept was that if it is sighted in east, all those cities which are on the west of that area will automatically will fall in the area where they can see the moon also. Because when the moon travels, it becomes bigger. And this was the understanding. So the majority view has been that if a moon is sighted in one area, all those cities to the west of that location will follow automatically. Then we had this view of Ayatollah Khoei, rahmatullah alayh, one of the great mujtahideen of this century. He had a different perspective. He used to say that if a moon is sighted in one area, of course it is sufficient for its own region, and it's also sufficient for the west of it. And then this was the new thing. He said even to the east of it, as long as those areas share common night with the place where the moon was sighted. So he's not only, extending the visibility of the moon in one location to the west of it, He is also now extending it to the east of it on the basis of sharing the common night. So for example, if moon is sighted in Mecca, Karachi or Calcutta is on the east of it. If they share the night, even half an hour common night between Mecca and Calcutta or Karachi, then Karachi and Calcutta also can follow that, although it was sighted there later on. Can we close the door, please? So that's the perspective of Ayatollah Khoei. And I'll come to that about it later on. Then we have the third view, which was initially started by Ayatollah Sistani, and even Ayatollah Khamenei now agrees with that. And that is that sighting of a young crescent is sufficient for its region only. And the areas that share the greater possibility of sighting based on astronomical data. This is moving away from the perspective of Ayatollah Khoei as well as the majority view. Now let us connect that with the issue of science, modern science, and moon sighting. When we look at the astronomical research done, and this is where I would like to make a point here, emphasizing what I said about the new moon. Astronomy can give us exact time and location of the birth of the new moon. That is known. This was there in the past, and it is known even now. It's only recently, and when I say recently, we are talking about just 15 or maximum 20 years, that astronomy started giving us the precise timing, location, and growth pattern for the visibility of the crescent. This is a new development in science. Many Muslim scientists and some non-Muslim ones also, Schaeffer, Yolop from UK, Muhammad Ilyas from Malaysia, Khalid Shaukat from US, and Muhammad Ode from Jordan. These are the experts in astronomy who have actually paid attention to this issue of moon sighting. And they have come with a theory which gives us the location and the growth pattern for the visibility of the crescent. However, they do not guarantee the actual sighting. They just say that in this location, on this day, at that time, it will be possible to see the crescent, but they do not give the guarantee that it will be actually seen. You still have to go out and look for it. Now, the main factors in visibility of the crescent are about 7 things. Number 1, age of the moon, as I said, 17 to 23 hours. Moon's lag time between sunset and moonset. Is it, long or very short? Then the third is the moon's altitude. Sometimes the moon might be above the horizon, but just a little bit above the horizon, so it cannot be seen. The arc of the light coming from the sun to the moon, that angle also is very important. And then we talk about the arc of vision, the direction that you will be looking at the moon. And then the relative azimuth, the distance where the sun is setting down and the point where the moon is going to set down. How far apart they are. And finally, the crescent's size or the width or the thickness of the crescent. These are all factors which have to be studied before an astronomer can say that the crescent will be visible or not visible. So it's not just an issue of taharat and najasat here. Okay, you have to go and study all this thing to understand how this whole phenomenon, happens. Now, the scientific view on moon sighting, the visibility pattern. This is also very interesting to see how the new scientists have given us the pattern of visibility. The visibility takes the shape of a curve, And I'll give you some examples. The location of the first visibility is just like a point. And the further it moves toward the west, the visibility curve then expands like an oval. So it's not a straight line going from east to west. It is a point, and then it, extend gradually in an oval form. The area within the curve is the area of visibility, and the area outside the curve is the area where visibility is not scientifically possible. Look at some of the examples we have here. This is from 2009's chart. If you look at this, you see the world's map there. You have the black area, red area, gray, blue, and green. The black area means visibility not possible at all. The red area where the visibility is possible only by using optical aid. Means you might look at it, then you remove it, you can't see it. So you can't see it by your naked eyes, and that's the red area. Then we have the gray area where you will need the optical aid to find the moon, and then you might be able to even see it with your own naked eyes, unlike the red zone. Then we have the blue zone there, which means visible if perfect conditions, weather-wise. And finally, we come to the green zone where easily visible with naked eyes. And so this is what science gives us, the pattern of visibility of the hilal. The time and the place of the beginning of the point of visibility of the young crescent changes from month to month. It's not always same. Sometimes, we declare that, yes, tomorrow is the first of the month based on the sighting in Florida. Next month I say, well, no, tomorrow is 30th. And they say, but it was sighted in Florida. Yes, it was sighted in Florida, but the range of visibility last month was different from this month. And so it moves latitude-wise as well as longitude-wise. Sometimes it is in the north of the equator, sometimes in the south, sometimes to the east, sometimes to the west. Look at these examples that we have here. One is you see more in the southern part and the western area. The next month you have the visibility chart in the northern area. Sometimes you have covering the whole area, sometimes only in the southern part of the globe. So it has different, patterns. It doesn't happen exactly the same way every month. Now, let us see, is this scientific theory that we have, its application in ijtihad? Do our mujtahideen accept that or not? During the time of the Grand Ayatollah Al-Khoui, the scientists had not yet developed this theory of the beginning of the visibility. So this was not even known during this time. But now that we know that, when we look at the view of Ayatollah Khoui, he was a great marja, no doubt about it. But when it comes to the issue of whether, we can, that view is any more sustainable or not, I very humbly would say that it is not sustainable. I'll just give you an idea, because you have to understand that the process of ijtihad doesn't close in the Shia fiqh. It will continue. You could have a marja and a mujtahid who is very great, but it doesn't mean you are not allowed to, have a different opinion. One of the problems is that, and I'm not saying that the Grand Ayatollah Khoui believed that the earth was flat, but his theory that one sighting in one area is good enough for the entire West and even to the east of the point of visibility, as long as they share the common night, is only sustainable if the earth was flat. So you have the table here, the moon is sighted here. Everything to the west of it will follow, and even the east will follow, provided they have a common night. But if the earth is round, this concept that first point of visibility covers the whole globe in that way is not sustainable. Number two, there is a confusion in his view between what we call astronomical lunar month and the religious lunar month. If you take the birth of the new moon, which is known as the astronomical lunar moon month, then that is a fixed term. It is once, birth happens only once. Doesn't happen every few hours. But our Islamic calendar doesn't go with the birth of the new moon. It goes with the visibility. And visibility is not a single phenomenon. It depends in the location where you are, and the chart or the curve of visibility goes not in a straight form, that if it's sighted in one area, all areas to the north and the south and the east or west of it will follow. It goes in the curve form. And so from the scientific point of view, the view of the great marja of this century, Ayatollah Khoei, is not sustainable. Those who are in taqleed, they still have to follow. I'm just giving you, what is the new research on this issue. Now we come to the contemporary mujtahideen. Many among the mujtahideen who still follow Ayatollah Khoei's view, some of his students totally go with this. Some of them, like my own teacher, Ayatollah Wahid Khurasani, has slightly modified it. He has put more restriction in the common night concept of it. Others have accepted it with some other kind of modifications. So there are some who are still following that view. Others among the mujtahideen, no. Others who have moved away from this and who look at the astronomical findings and they have moved away from the global application of Ayatollah Khoei's view are people like Ayatollah Sistani, and Ayatollah Makarim Shirazi, as well as Ayatollah Khamenei. The most famous in the latter group are Ayatollah Sistani and Ayatollah Khamenei. Their views, and I just would like to summarize here, and anybody who wants to reference can come to me later on, we can talk about it. If the moon is sighted in a city, then all areas within that horizon will follow. They believe in regional sighting, application of the sighting only in that region. And what is the common horizon, according to them? They say that there must be a similarity between this location where the moon was sighted and the other city as far as the data of visibility is concerned. If you have a place where the moon was sighted, then you have another city, even if it's in the west. But if scientifically it's not possible to sight it here, they say that this sighting here doesn't help the other city. So you have to see whether those cities share the common horizon as far as the possibility of the ru'yat of the hilal, sighting of the crescent, is concerned. If the astronomical data show that visibility is not possible in a region, then the sightings in other cities will not apply to it. Let me give you an example, the very recent one, the month of Ramadan that we are going through. We, based on the sighting in America, we started on Wednesday. Isn't that day? Are you sure, huh? Wednesday was the first of Ramadan. Iran also, based on the sighting in that region, declared Wednesday to be the first of the month. But what about England? Ayatollah Khamenei's representative in London, England, who is the head of this center known as the Islamic Center of England, made a detailed declaration on his website saying that because it is scientifically not possible to sight the moon on Tuesday night in Northern Europe, including in UK, we will start the month of Ramadan on Thursday. Even though Ayatollah Khamenei started that in Iran on Wednesday. So we realize that, the Maraja make the declaration, but the declaration has to be taken according to the criteria that they have set down. That if there is similarity as far as imkanur ru'ya, possibility of the sighting is concerned, then you will take the sighting of one city and apply it to the other. Otherwise, not. Another point, although both share in the view that the application of one sighting is regional only, they both differ on an important point. Ayatollah Sistani, like the majority, believes in sighting by naked eyes, while Ayatollah Khamenei considers telescopic sighting by itself to be sufficient. And so that's the difference we have between the two of them. Now, what is the future? And we are not talking about the Eid which is coming. We're talking about the future of this whole issue of moon sighting as far as ijtihad is concerned. One of the questions would be, can the astronomical data about possibility of sighting the crescent be used to determine the first of the month without actually sighting it? We are reaching close to that. Because I have been observing this astronomical data for about 20 years. On a personal level, I am very much convinced with that. And even the Maraji who have considered the astronomical research on this issue are moving in that direction, although they are still not sure about the theory which is being presented by the scientists. Because sighting by itself is not an objective. It's not the mawdu. It is a tariq, a means of ascertaining the presence of the visible crescent on the horizon. So if a person is convinced, they have yaqeen, or they have itminan, you can act on that. So that would be the future. However, in doing this, we have to accept the full impact of the astronomical data. And what are the implications? There was a time where people like me would hear, oh, these ulama are so obsolete, outdated, science has moved this and that. It can tell you the sunrise and the sunset, and it can give you the timings precise of the birth of the new moon, and they are still sitting there in the Middle Ages. Now that we have the mujtahideen who are going with the astronomical data on moon sighting, now we don't like the result of the research. Why? Because the implication of astronomical data is that we are not going to have global Eid or Ramadan. It will be regional. The pattern of crescent's visibility is regional, not global. Number two, the pattern of crescent visibility does not follow the national boundaries. It doesn't recognize, this is the parallel line between Canada and US. It doesn't go. Moon doesn't know these geographical boundaries. You can have one country divided on the issue of moon sighting half and half. And you really can't do anything. And so some parts of the world will do the Eid one day, and other parts will do it on the next day. And there shouldn't be any problem. I don't know, we have taken this whole issue out of context in the name of unity. Even if you do it in the same day because of the time difference, by the time you get up for your Eid and do namaz here, people in Pakistan will be getting ready to go to bed. So, this is just a myth which has been created. Yes, it will be good to have one. But if this is what the scientific data is telling us and leading us to regional, declaration of Ramadan and Eid, then we will have to live with that. Now, I've already gone over time, but let me deal with some of the common questions we hear about it. Do the bigger size or higher altitude of the crescent prove that it is of the second night of the lunar month? Sometimes we say, Maulana, you said yesterday was not the first night, but we saw the moon today. Tonight was higher and bigger. So it means last night was the first of the month, the eve. The problem is that this is not sustainable by religious evidence, nor by astronomical, data. If the new month's For example, if the new moon was born on 12 p.m. on Wednesday, noon hour, it will not be visible on that Wednesday night because it is not, it's less than 15 hours. It needs 17 to 23 hours. So that moon will be visible only on Thursday. By Thursday sunset time, it is 36 hours old. An old moon means a thicker moon and a higher moon. But it doesn't mean that it was visible the night before. So this whole issue of the size of the moon, our mujtahideen don't accept that at all. People like Ayatollah Khomeini, Ayatollah Gulpaygani, Ayatollah Fazl Lankarani, Ayatollah Sistani, Ayatollah Khamenei, Ayatollah Makarim Shirazi, they clearly state that the size and the altitude of the moon does not prove that this is of the second night. You just missed the boat. The moon didn't want to come to you. So it comes the next day bigger in size, so what? So this is what we had realized, that it's not even scientific way of looking at it, neither a Shari'i way of looking at it. The second question we get many times, and I was surprised when one of the prominent ulama from India, who is very versed on this moon sighting issue, even he expressed this opinion in this way a few years ago when he was here, and I told him that this is not the right way of looking at it. He was saying, it was in the middle of Ramadan, he was saying, I looked at the full moon, and I think we have done the Ramadan wrong. I said, why? He said, well, if you go back, full moon, go back 2 weeks back, and that's how you'll get the first of the month. Again, this is not right from the scientific point of view, neither from the Shari'i point of view. This will not be the new moon, the full moon will not be the criteria. From the scientific point of view, if you really want to see the full moon, what does it show? The full moon is not opposite of the crescent and hilal. Look at this chart here again. What is the opposite of the new moon there? On the other side of the earth, you have the full moon. So when you see the full moon, if you want to go back 2 weeks, you reach to the birth of the new moon. Whereas the Islamic months begin not at the birth of the new moon, it begins at the visibility when it happens, becomes possible. And so we cannot go with this issue of, the full moon as a criteria of going back and try to readjust the calendar. Let me now give you a quiz here about next week. Look at this chart. This is on Wednesday, August 7th, 2003, coming Wednesday. Where is Canada? In which zone? It's in black. And where is US? Almost 97% of it is black. Which means that on Wednesday night, the hilal, the crescent, will not be sighted in Canada or in US. It could be sighted in South America, and with difficulty in South Africa also. And if it's sighted in South America, of course, for those who are in the taqleed of Ayatollah Khomeini, they will be able to follow that. But when it comes to the muqalladeen of Ayatollah Sistani and Ayatollah Khamenei, they will not be able to follow that, because our area is coming into the black zone, which is out of the range of possibility in any shape or form at all. Let us look at Thursday. Where is Toronto there? Toronto is just there on the border of green and blue. So we are okay, don't worry. We'll do it on Friday, not on Saturday. So next day, the range of visibility has gone up. And so this is what science is telling us at the moment. And the problem is not really the fatwa of the maraji. The problem is how people in the region and the local areas implement those fatwas according to the information that we have. Since not all individuals are on the same page, that's where we have confusion. And so if we follow that, and we go with the scientific data, it becomes very easy to predict, and then we will not have all these chaos and problems that we see, unfortunately, happening sometimes. And so with this, I'll end. We have about 15 to 20 minutes for questions if you have.
Jazakallah, Maulana Rizvi, thank you very much for that very illuminating presentation. We'll now open up the floor to questions. And to get us started, we have one question that's just come in from online. So we'll address that question first, and then we'll give both the brothers and the sisters an opportunity to address their questions. And there should be floating microphones available for you as well. So the first question, Maulana, this has come in from our viewers online. How do the moon sighting rules differ between the different sects of Islam?
I'm not really in a position to give a complete response to that question, because I had to study the other madhahib fully before I can be in that position. But primarily they agree with the issue of the sighting of the new moon, of the crescent. But if you look at the recent developments, especially in North America and Europe, you will see that among the Sunnis there is a variety of responses to this issue. ISNA, for example, the famous national organization in North America, they came up with a theory which we have a problem with it. It's not sustainable religiously nor scientifically. According to ISNA, and they have a fiqh shura, a committee of their scholars, they say that if the birth of the new moon happens before the sunset in Mecca, they have taken Mecca as the criteria, then the next day would automatically be the day of the first of the month. And therefore they, unlike the rest of the Muslims here, started the month of Ramadan on Tuesday. Even the Saudis started on Wednesday, but ISNA did it on Tuesday. And their theory of making Mecca the beginning point has been criticized by other, Muslim scholars from the Sunni, circles, including Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, where he very beautifully put it there. He says that the ISNA's view basically means that they had the Caesarean birth of the new moon. So there's a problem with them. If you look at Toronto Hilal Committee of the Sunni majority groups here in Toronto, they go with regional sighting. If there's sighting in North America or Central America, they will take it and they'll go with that. They don't follow the Middle East on this issue. So you have a variety of opinions among them also.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, Syed. With regards to the horizon you were describing, the earth is divided into 12 vertical lines, which we call latitude. And based on your map, 6 longitude, horizontal. Can the same horizon be placed in the same square that's formed when two latitude, two longitude intersect each other? Can we call that square a horizon? Same horizon?
From the Shari'i point of view, when we talk about ufuq, the horizon, we define it not in those lines. For us, same and common horizon basically means two areas who have similar chances of, sighting the crescent. So it doesn't really follow that line.
But don't they see the same crescent between two latitudes?
Not necessarily. If you look at the curves,
yes.
The curves move in different ways.
Okay. One more question. Sydney, Australia sees the new crescent, let's say, today. Does that mean tonight, let's say this evening, does that mean that we see the new crescent 12 hours from now? The next evening, 17 to 23 hours later.
It all depends on the curve. If it was this way, you look at the map now, if it was sighted there in Sydney, it could be sighted there in Toronto area also. So it all, again, everything goes back to the pattern of the curve. Sometimes it is possible, sometimes it is not. If this red zone was even further west, then Australia would be out, whereas South America would be in. So it all depends on how the point of visibility is starting.
Do we have any questions from the ladies?
Based off the calendar that we have, every day passed by from east to west, we have 1st of July, 2nd of July. Is it possible some area in the world become 1st of Shaban, some area going to be 30th of the Shaban? How we can fix this problem? For example, down on the south is 2nd of Shaban, up in the north is 1st of Shaban.
Well, the issue is that when we go with the Hilal, it's not like the solar. The July month goes with the solar system. So they have fixed, patterns. They go with that, the solar system which is fixed. Hilal is not. So even the movement of the Hilal changes east to west, north and south. And so this issue would be there. I think we have to live with it. I don't think it should be a problem if Pakistan is doing it one day, we are doing it the other day. Or we are doing, for example, Ramadan, we did one day before what was done in India and Pakistan. I think we have to live with it, and there shouldn't be a problem. I think we create myths around it more.
Just before we take our next question, watching us online, you can send our email to our Joffrey Tabligh Board website or to our email address at jtv@joffrey.org.
Assalamu alaikum, Asab. Thank you for the session. Just a quick question. As we understand that for Agha Sistani, optical aid is not acceptable, right? Versus Agha Khamnai. So looking at those curves, when you show those charts, if for Agha Sistani, a region happens to be in the red zone versus a blue zone, like what is the cutoff point for Agha Sistani? If, like for sharing the ufuk, is it up to the red point or it stops at blue or gray? Just wondering. Thank you.
It's a good question. I think from Ayatollah Sistani's perspective, the end of the gray zone would be within the horizon. So if it's sighted in green, it will cover the blue and gray also, but not the red.
We have a question from the sisters.
Assalamu alaikum. Due to the opinion, like different opinions of different mirages, there are two Eids in the same house. Like, how my parents follow Agha Kui and we follow Agha Sistani. So there are two Eids in the same house. So is there, is there any Atiyat Wajib or any other masala that they can follow?
I think the solution is very easy, especially when it comes to the older generation and the younger one. In most cases, the older generation would be still in taqlid of Ayatul Akhoui, and the younger one would be following Ayat Sistani, for example. That's where the 2 days happen. I think then the older generation has to kind of be merciful to the younger one, not fast on that day, but join in namaz and celebration next day. It's as simple as that. You see, the problem is we want the Maraji to change their views. The solution is not there, the solution is here. 3 years ago, 5 prominent ulama from London, England, Syed Fazil Milani, Syed Muhammad Musavi, Aghay Alami, Maulana Zafar Abbas, and some other person, I don't remember the names. They wrote a very extensive letter to Ayatollah Sistani that can you change your opinion from fatwa to ihtiyat? We have 2 days Eid in the same house. And he wrote a long response to them. He said, you go and educate the people about this masail. I'm not going to change my fatwa because of that. That is my conviction about, that is my opinion, that is my ijtihad, and that is my knowledge about it. And so the solution is in our hand. It's not the issue of asking them to change the views.
So can they follow Agha Sistani's masla on this?
Who?
Like our parents, if they're following Agha Kui's
No,
taqlid?
what they do is they don't fast on that day. On the day one, because it is Eid day for them, it is haram for them to fast. So it's not a problem. They're going to have the biryani away from their sons or daughters. Next day also invite their children for that. Of course, a fresh one, not the one from the day before. So the solution is really in our hands. You see, we make it an issue here.
The only problem arises when, we have like Sunni family friends, right? They ask what day is your Eid, and we have no answer because there are 2 Eids
I
in
have
the
a
same
very
house.
simple answer. Ask them, when did you start Ramadan? In Toronto, you look at ISNA and their masajid started on Tuesday. All other, about 80 masajid in Greater Toronto area, started on Wednesday. So who says they do it on one day? We have created this myth that the rest is all one, we are divided. It's there everywhere. And it doesn't matter what they are doing. We have to follow what our fiqh is telling us.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you clarify again, when you look at that moon pattern, what the difference between the gray areas and the red areas? Both say optical device, but I'm not clear on what the difference is.
The difference is that in the red area, you can only see with the telescope. If you remove the telescope, you will not be able to see it. The gray area means you need the telescope to find it. And then if you remove it, once you pinpointed the area, you will be able to see it with your eyes. So that's the difference between the two.
We have an online question submitted. This is a question from online. Is there a reason that Ayatollah Sistani necessitates viewing the new moon by the naked eye rather than using an optical aid?
Well, this is the opinion of the majority, and actually it goes back to a principle in ijtihad where when we define things, one of the criteria is that we go with the urfi definition of things. So when we talk about ru'yat, sighting of the moon, we have to look at the common way of sighting it. And the common way would be that an ordinary person should be able to see the moon by naked eyes. Whereas telescopic sighting is a specialized or a technical way of looking at it. And so that is the difference in approach to defining the ru'yat. The majority says you have to go with the common standard of sighting.
Any questions from the sister side?
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, my question is that normally if we are very keen on moonsighting during Ramadan and Eid, but normally we celebrate events throughout the year. So normally what I do, I follow the website of our Imam Barga and see the date. But there it does not mention whether it is declared through Sistani or Khoi or everything. So it gets difficult for me to, means because I did not follow. So what should I do in this case?
Well, we should be following this pattern or this criteria of sighting every month. People don't really care about it, only in Ramadan and Eid. And there is a reason for it. There is a valid reason, because if it is Ramadan, it's wajib to fast. And if it's a day of Eid, it's haram to fast. So that's why there is a lot of, anxiety and emphasis on finding out when the month is starting. But for other months also, since it's not a matter of wajib or haram, it doesn't really matter whether you do the celebration one day before or day after. Yes, it is. Yeah. Well, at least for our center or the announcement that we make every month, it is best on the, we have a committee known as the Crescent Committee of the Council of Ulama, where I'm also a part of that committee. We have teleconferencing every month. We get all the information from different regions in North America, and based on the fiqh standard, the announcement is made. No. No. That wouldn't be, because it's all in the same horizon in that way. The difference wouldn't be in a city by itself. It would be, in the region. Yes. No, but if it is sited in Toronto but not in Mississauga, it's covered. Yeah, it would be one.
We have another question from online, Maulana. This question is, what is the ruling of Ayatollah Gul Paigani regarding the moon sighting? And if somebody started their taqleed with Ayatollah Gul Paigani and now they're doing the taqleed of Ayatollah Sistani, whose ruling should they be following?
If they have moved to the taqleed of a living mujtahid, then they should be following that. If they have remained in the taqleed of Ayatollah Gul Paigani, then they should follow that perspective, and that was the majority view, that is, if it's sited in one place, then all location to the west of it will follow.
Just as a follow-up to that, with respect to Ayatollah Sistani's rulings, can you please advise whether North and South America fall within the same horizon?
As I mentioned, more than once, when we look at the concept of horizon in the views of Ayatollah Sistani and Ayatollah Khamenei, it's not really fixed. It depends on the chances of visibility. And every month that pattern will change. So maybe one month they would be all together, the month after that they would not be. Because maybe in one area it is possible to sight it, in another area it is not possible. So for them, that criteria of horizon is no more fixed geographically. It all depends on the pattern of visibility. So for example, if you look at the map we have on the screen, South America is within the range of visibility, but North America, US and Canada is not. So they are not on the same horizon. Whereas, next day, both are in the same area. But already South America would have done Eid next day, the day before.
Assalamu alaikum. My question is that if we look this issue in the perspective of time, it makes really sense that in the earlier times, in the past, in the time of the Prophet and the followers, the issue was very regional. It could not be a global thing because of the communication thing. Now, because we have got this, we have been in this discussion with other Ahl Sunnat friends and things. So I also collected some time back some details, and their point of view was that in the hadith from Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Nabi instructs Muslims to start their fast when Allah also instruct and Nabi also instruct that fast and start their fast in Eid based on their royat. But they say that the words used in the riwayat, it's plural, so it actually applies to the ijma or to the ummah in general. So it's not wajib or farz on everybody to look for himself. So they actually say when it is plural and when it applies to more than the individual himself, so why cannot we take it for the ummah completely? And they actually quote one I have just seen in my thing from Abu Dawud riwayat, which is definitely not a binding for us. Maybe the riwayat is zaif, but there they said that once Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the people of Medina, it was cloudy and they were not able to see the Shawwal moon. And then a caravan came from some other city, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam asked them, and they said, yes, they have seen the moon yesterday. And then Nabi instruct all the companions to break the fast, and he prayed the Eid namaz. So it's a riwayat from Abu Dawud. Maybe it's not authentic, but they actually quote things like this, where they actually somehow prove that this rule is plural, applied to the majority, and there's the limitation of putting of horizons is something new, which is not in the hadith anywhere. Thank you.
Well, my comment to that is very brief, that even if you look at the Sunni scholars at the moment, there is no unanimity on that issue. As I said, even if you look at the Toronto Hilal Committee of the Sunni Masajid, who are in majority, who are not under ISNA, they have a regional criteria where they use only the sighting in North America and Central America as a criteria. ISNA has another criteria from, point of Makkah. Before it, if the birth happens, next day would be the day of Eid. So it's difficult to deduce in that way that, the Prophet wanted it to happen in that way. The caravan, the example from Abu Dawud, I'm not sure about the hadith, but it means the caravan must have been close by Medina, that they came in the morning and said, we saw it last night. It couldn't have been from Makkah. So it was close by. And so still that hadith cannot be used to say global. It was still regional. Because even from Makkah to Medina would have taken 3-4 days at least. Yeah. And I'll just give you one example. It was very interesting when Ayatollah Sistani was asked 3 years ago to give the ijtihadi, evidence for his opinion, why he differs from his teacher, Ayatollah Khoui. It's very interesting. He looked at the hadith, which is from our 10th Imam. And this is in Baghdad, where it was 29th of Sha'ban, and the moon was not sighted. But some of the astrologers those days came to him and they said, according to our calculations in Egypt, is sure to be sighted tonight. And Imam said, no, even if it's sighted there, it's not sighted here in Baghdad. We will do 30th of Sha'ban. And Ayatollah Sistani mentioned something which is very interesting for me, and I went and looked at, because we have a software which gives us the capability of selecting the city and the day, and it will give you the data in that city, whether the visibility of the crescent is possible or not, and what are the chances. And so what I did was I looked at, because in that riwayat of the 10th Imam, it even mentions the year. It was 232 of Hijrah, 29 Sha'ban, and this is in Baghdad. So we just clicked that, selected Baghdad as the location, and that date, going backwards. And it showed that scientifically it was probable. Not 100% sure, but probability was there for it to be seen in Baghdad, but it was not seen. And so Imam said next day would be the 30th of Sha'ban. And so, it's difficult to use hadith as a base of talking about global implication of this sighting.
Assalamu alaikum. I just wanted to ask a question. When you made a remark or comment there through your humble opinion there, where you mentioned about Ayatul Quiz, where you mentioned that in his regard that it's not sustainable anymore because it was more like the earth was flat. Based on what I've known over time with these fatwas, over time, as things have through science, we've learned new things, and our marjas have adapted and created change in order to us to be proactive and be progressive through the changing of time of technology and advancement, and through various areas, whether it be medicine and all of these areas and all these facets. Why wouldn't this be applicable as well, whether this certain fatwas or certain things should be dropped off because they're not applicable or may not be, as you say, sustainable, rather than keeping the discipline of just because we're following him, certain things, because especially he's not alive, that he can't change his opinion anymore. Should not the advancement of time and the advancement of these intelligent people progressively move towards a more unified approach that brings about more unity in perspective that way?
Well, you concur with what I said, so I don't have to say anything more than that.
Maulana, we have another question that came in online. The question is, since Iran declared the first of Ramadan on Wednesday, and so did we in North America, how is it that England declared their first of Ramadan on the Thursday? If we're using the science method, perhaps you could explain that based on the curve in more detail so we can better understand how in this particular case we ended up with two different beginnings of Ramadan in areas that seem to be relatively in the same area.
Well, I don't have the connection here at the moment, but if you go to www.moonsighting.com, and if they look for the chart of the month of July, they will see that England was in the black zone because of its further north. And so it was not possible for them to sight the moon. And therefore they did it on Thursday, whereas we went with the sighting in US, and we are more in the southern area where the curve covered us in that way.
Do we have any questions from the sisters? No? We'll take another question from the brothers, please.
I think we should be concluding in 5 minutes.
Just a comment. There have been 3 Eid in Toronto, as we remember, in past. So I think 2 Eids are common, but there has been 3 Eids in like a couple of years back. I'm just asking Maulana, you just showed the map. So is that we going to celebrate the Eid on the day of Friday?
Well, that was the quiz. I'll leave it with you. I just want to see how much you learn from me.
Assalamu alaikum. It's interesting at the time of Hajj, which is the ultimate act of unity for the whole world, if not at least in Mecca. We don't have these issues of the Shia Sunni split at the day of Arafah or Eid al-Adha. We seem to reconcile a single day of Arafah, time zone respected, of course, but in Eid al-Fitr we have these issues, and unity, if you go to the pure sense of it, seems to have two different spiritual senses for both Eids.
Well, I think the issue of Eid al-Adha, again, it's not what you are mentioning is more about in Makkah and Mina, not on a global level. Because people still go with their, sighting of the region, those who follow the regional sightings. As far as the Shia and Sunni in Makkah and Mina are concerned, the Shias don't have a choice. You can't have a very large group of Hujjaj, going for Arafat where millions are going to Mina. Even Saudis wouldn't allow that. So that is not really an issue out of the spirit of unity. It's more what we call in fiqh haraj. It will be unbearable for people to do that. And it will not be possible practically to do that. So because of that, we don't have a choice but to go with the declaration made by the Saudis. So I don't think the spirit of unity is the basis for that. It is more haraj and taqiyya. Actually, Ayatollah Sistani on that issue says, you do ihtiyat, refer to somebody else, and goes with the Saudi declaration of the dates.
Assalamu alaikum. Near the end of your presentation, you were mentioning the astronomical calculations on visibility. So I'm just a bit confused. Did you say that if someone is certain about astronomical data, they can follow it, or?
Yes, if you have yaqeen about it, you can follow it.
Okay, thank you.
I think we'll take one last question.
Assalamu alaikum, Syed. Just out of curiosity, if humans were to colonize the moon, how would they do the moon sighting then?
They don't have to look for moon anyway. No, for them, probably the moon would be the earth. Their qibla would be the earth still. So, inshallah, once we have the traveling facilities there, then you come to me. I'll give you the fatwa for that.
I'd like to thank Maulana Rizvi for his very illuminating presentation. I'd like to thank the community members who participated today, either in person or online. If there are any other questions that you may have regarding this topic or any other topics, please feel free to contact us at our email address, Jafri Tabligh Board, jtb@jafri.org. Also, we'd like to invite your feedback. Please do give us feedback on this presentation and any other Tabligh presentations you'd like to see in the future. Please do email us again at jtb@jafri.org. May I please ask for a loud Nara Salawat? Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.